And the topic for today is CLI, a command line interface for Azure. Whether you're doing development or operations, this is the right tool for you. You can start easy and go into more advanced scenarios whenever you're gonna be building DevOps in the future. So let's jump right to it. Let's start quickly with definition. CLI is cross-platform command line interface that allows you to manage your Azure resources, and it's as simple as this. Why would you want to use it? Well, for instance, day-to-day operations. If you're doing those repetitive tasks, this is a perfect way for you to automate those. If you can actually schedule those, you can do deployments, especially for massive deployments when you're deploying tens or hundreds of resources. That is a perfect way to automate that. If you're doing DevOps, so development and operations, and doing those CI/CD pipelines, this is also a perfect scenario for Azure CLI. Whenever learning, this is also good, because there are a lot of snippets in CLI that allows you to quick start your learning process faster. And there are some processes that are easier with CLI, like generation of SSH key, which is actually out of the box feature in CLI. How does CLI work? Well, there are typical commands within CLI that always start with AZ. AZ is your starting point for CLI. It's the most basic command. And from there, it's a hierarchy. So for instance, you have AZ login to log into your Azure account, AZ account to manage that account, AZ group, for instance, that's one of the examples, for a command to manage resource groups. And again, as I said, it's a hierarchy. So within that group, you then have additional actions like list to list all your resource groups, create to create new ones, etc, etc, etc. There's hundreds of commands available for you, and we're gonna learn them in a second. So why would you want to use CLI? Most of what you're gonna see on the screen right now will be demoed in just a second. First of all, there's interactive mode. So if you're learning CLI, interactive mode will actually guide you through available commands and tell you what are the required parameters, what is the description, and things like that. You have multiple output formats. This is a perfect thing for automation, or query your resources with GMES path. You can also combine multiple commands in a single one, like for instance when creating virtual machines, there's a lot of commands combined behind the scenes allowing you to create virtual machines faster. And you can also extend. What is great here is also that this entire CLI is written in Python, which means it's cross-platform, so you can use it on Windows, macOS or Linux. And lastly, it works in a Cloud Shell. I will show you Cloud Shell later on during the demo. It's a way of running CLI in a cloud without installing anything locally. I've prepared a couple of demos for you today. First of all, we're gonna go through simple commands and overview of how CLI works. Then we're gonna be listing our resources, resource groups, and querying through those resources. Later, we're gonna work with multiple outputs, and I'm gonna show you interactive mode. With interactive mode, I will show you how easy it is to provision, for instance, virtual machine. And lastly, we're gonna close it off with using CLI in a Cloud Shell. So let's jump right to it. Before we jump to CLI, let me show you what we are working with today. In my resource groups, I have 4 resource groups. My OneDrive backup, I have dashboards, network watcher group, and some other groups. So those are the resource groups that I currently have, and we're gonna be listing them in a second. So let's go into command line. As you see, this is the standard command prompt for Windows, and I'm gonna be working with that today. So working with CLI is as simple as writing simple commands. AZ is our starting point, and typing login to log into Azure. As you see, I was already logged into Azure on a previous window, and therefore when a window popped for me to log in, you already see that I'm signed in, so I can simply hit, and it says you are logged to Microsoft Azure, and you can close this window. That was super simple, and it was because my session was already opened, so I didn't have to retype any credentials to log into CLI. Right now, as you see, I have one subscription that I'm working on, and this subscription is my Visual Studio Enterprise. So how do you work with Azure CLI? First of all, it's always good to remember the basic commands. With AZ, you can always follow any kind of command in Azure CLI by --help or by short -h. And this will give you up with all available commands on the level that you are currently working on. So for AZ, we have all those subgroups that we can use and commands directly on this object. So for instance, if I would want to list our resource group that I showed you a second ago, I would just find a resource group object here, and I know it's called group. As you see, manage resource groups and template deployments. So let's go down and type az group. Again, I might not know what is the next command that I need to run, so I can type -h for help and see what are the options. As you see, I can do, for instance, listing by typing list. If you type list, you're gonna get a list of your resource groups. As you see, this is a standard JSON output. So what can I do now? First of all, let's try querying some important information, because there's a lot of information on the screen now, but maybe we're just interested in some of that information. To do so, you can actually use -group list -h. You're gonna get list options. And as you see, what can you do with listing? You can do, for global arguments, you can actually find this query parameter. And this is this JMES path that I was talking about. If you want to see more about it, read from this website about the details of this standard. So you can do az group list --query and start typing that query. That query language is, well, it's not very intuitive at start. You need to understand it. So let's see our output again for a second. If you type az group list, you'll notice that our output is closed in parentheses and close brackets, right? That means it's an array. So if you want to query an array, you type --query, and in quotation, you type array. That means for every element of this array, return something. For instance, a name. So that will iterate over all our resource group and grab this property name. So let's see that in action. As you see, we got names of the resource groups. This is a powerful language because here you can do much more than just querying one property. For instance, if you open brackets here, you can actually create objects. So you can type, I don't know, for instance, resource group name, _name, comma, and for instance, location, _location. As you see, this looks like a normal JSON. So we're creating a JSON object with two properties, a resource group name and a location. And we're outputting into those properties a name and a location of the resource group. And this is the output that we've got. As you see, this is much more readable right now because we're only querying for information that we need. So what happens if you need only some of the resources from those lists? You can actually do filtering. So let's pop this command again. And here in this brackets, you can actually specify a filter. So let's remove everything here and just leave brackets. So if I would run this, you would actually see entire list, right? That's the full list. And what you can do here is do a question mark and type a filter. For instance, let's filter by location to get only resource groups that are within North Europe. So you type equal sign, double quotes, actually two single quotes, and type North Europe. And let's see the result. As you see, we got only two groups. And you can actually combine those like previously, just using properties or generating objects. So those are the resource group that I have in North Europe. What's next? So I was saying that you can actually query, but you can also do is formatting. Because as you see, these JSON files are pretty cool, but they're not always as readable because running that on the screen creates a lot of information. So what you can do besides filtering of information, you can do different outputs. And you get output by, let's find it in help. As always, I'm trying to show help because it's actually really good. And if you go to help, you will also see a global argument called output. That means you can use this global argument on pretty much any single command that you will be running. So let's try that. So let's try list --output or -o for short, and type, for instance, TSV. That's tab separated value, similar to CSV. That's still not readable, although it takes less space on the screen. So maybe JSON-C, which is basically colorized JSON. That's already a little bit better. It's more readable, properties are differently colored by values, etc. The next what we can try is table. Table is one of my favorites because it creates a small text table for you to review. This is one of the best ways to actually see resources on the screen, even if there's a lot of them. And lastly, you also have something cool, which is YAML. So if you're doing DevOps with any other tools, you can actually get YAML of your resources and propagate that to your DevOps tools. What else you can do? Well, that's what you can do with those output parameters, but it's good to remember that you can actually combine all of those. So if you're grabbing those comments that we ran previously, like this, you can also type -o and type table, and you're gonna get a table which is our pre-built from our query, which is very, very cool. Recently, Microsoft introduced a new mode called Azure CLI Interactive Mode. With this, you can actually work with CLI easier just by typing AZ interactive, and for the first time when you run this, it will download some things. But for the next time, this is how it will look like. So as you see on the bottom, it says loading. It's still in preview, so as you see it cat one letter. Although what you need to do right now is press enter after a few seconds until this loading message on the bottom disappears. As you see, it disappeared right now. And this is the interactive mode. So let me first clear the screen. This will give me more real estate. But what you might already have noticed is that there was some popping up. So let's do the same scenario with resource groups that we did a second ago. So if you start typing GR, notice that the IntelliSense was picking up this and giving you group. If you go tab and go next, notice something. When you selected this using tab, on the bottom you got the message manage resource groups and template deployments. This allows you to manage everything from the line and gives you information about the command itself. Now you can actually start using something else. You can either use arrows by going up and down, colors, for instance this purplish, pinkish color is the command itself. If you go to the green one, this is the group of the comments. That means beneath this, there's still more comments going on. If you go and it's pinkish, that means it's the actual command that will do something. So if you go to list, as you see, this is a command. And if you use it and you press space on the bottom, again, a pop-up appears, list resource groups. It gives you basic information about it and required parameters if there are any. As you see, there are no required, so the subscription and the tag are optional. Therefore, you can press enter and get the same results as previously. So you're not limited here. You can use the same features that you did a second ago and get more formatted, nicer format. You can query resources, etc., etc. Except here, you get this nice IntelliSense for whatever command you're using. So let's do a quick scenario with provisioning virtual machine. Let's see how easy it is to do that with CLI. Let's create first resource group. So AZ group, create tab. And now, as you see, we need 3 required parameters. We need location. If I type L, notice that I can also supply location by -L. So I'm gonna pick, and this is one of the cool features, you get a list of regions. So you don't have to worry about the naming of the region. You can just use it from the list. What else do we need? Dash. As I see, we need a group. So the name of the new resource group. So I'm gonna type -G and call it my group. And I think that's all we need. Let's hit enter. And as you see, we've got our resource group. If I'm gonna scroll up, this is the information for our resource group that was just created. Let's try this by creating virtual machine. I want to create virtual machine. I can either use find to find something about virtual machine. This allows me to find comments. This will use, as you see, some AI bot that found some comments for me to use. So let's type VM. It found a command. And what can we do with virtual machines? As I said, I want to create one So I see there's already action called create. Here I need to provide again 2 required parameters. So I can either use long -- name, or I can use short -n for the name. So that's gonna be called my VM. What else do I need? -g, that's the resource group name. And again, cool feature, it lists my resource groups in my subscription. So I don't even have to worry about what is the name of my resource group. I can actually pick it from the list. Now I have it. But this is where CLI isn't perfect, because it has a bit few more required parameters, but they're not picked up because those are reliant on the image behind the virtual machine. So first of all, I need to select an image. To do so, I need to type --image. So I need to give a name of the image that I will be using. Again, it's picking up from the API. Those are the available images. I'm gonna use Ubuntu. What else do I need? I have a system checked out. I have a name selected. I have a resource group name selected. Because this is a Linux virtual machine, I will want to connect to it through SSH. So let's provide a parameter for that. First of all, --, and there's an admin username. So a username that I will use to connect to virtual machine. So I'm gonna call it am demo user. What else do I need? --, and I need an SSH, and I know there's an already available for me -- generate SSH keys. And this is perfect. This is one of the things why would you want to use CLI, because normally you would have to use external tools to generate SSH keys. This way it has already integrated, so you just pop this command, add this parameter, press enter, and you're gonna get your virtual machine with SSH key generated. So let's try that. Let's press enter and wait a couple of seconds. I think it's between 10-15 seconds, so actually up to a minute or so. So let's skip ahead. Alright, so our VM was provisioned. If this works, we can actually see that our VM is currently running. It's in North Europe. We even have the public IP address, which I'm gonna copy. And I'm gonna leave interactive mode for a second. So I'm gonna close it by pressing Ctrl D and type SSH add am demo user add my IP, and let's see if I can connect. Oh, I actually made a typo. This should be SSH. Do you want to continue? Yes. And let's see. LS. Perfect. I just logged in into virtual machine using SSH, and it was just a simple one command using CLI. This is how much it saves time for you on your daily basis operations or provisioning of new resources. It's very easy and you can do it very quickly. So let's log out for a second. So let's review what do we have in the portal. In the portal, if we're gonna refresh our resource group list, notice we're gonna find our resource group called my group. Within that resource group, notice that with the simple command we provisioned 6 resources, and there's one of them is virtual machine. This virtual machine is already configured. This is our IP. If we go to networking, you're gonna see it's currently open for SSH. Of course, you might want to check that and change that to actually not allow it from entire internet, but actually specific IP ranges, just for the security reasons. But it is automated in a way that allows you to quickly spin up virtual machines and work with them. So that very last thing that I want to show you today is Cloud Shell. Because in order to use CLI, you actually need to install it on your computer. We already know it works on Windows, Linux or macOS, and you need to just quickly install it. But if you're in a hurry or you're working in a portal, or maybe you don't have an access to that, you can actually work with CLI in the portal itself. To do that, you either press this button here, Cloud Shell, and this pop-up will come up. You can actually drag and drop back and drag up, drag down to get more real estate. You can use Bash or PowerShell. PowerShell is going to be our topic in the future, but for now we're using Bash. As you see, the first screen you're going to get is you have no storage mounted, because as you can imagine, when working with CLI and command line interface tools, you need to have some sort of file storage where you can create those intermediate files. So to do that, you need to actually mount a storage account. So I'm gonna hit Show Advanced Options, select a region, that's gonna be North Europe, select resource group, I'm gonna use my group, and I'm gonna create new storage account. I'm gonna call it AM Demo Shell. And same here, AM Demo Shell, because it needs a storage account and a file share. I'm gonna hit Create Storage. This will create a storage account for me with LRS settings, so I can work with Shell and store my file somewhere. So this should take just a minute. So let's skip ahead. And right now the CLI is initializing. As you see, it already says what kind of storage account it is connected to. And once it does, notice that we already will be connected because you run Cloud Shell from Azure already. That means you are already connected to Azure. And this session is already intermediately put into the Cloud Shell itself. So let's try that. If we are already logged into Azure, if we're gonna run az group list, we're gonna get the same output as previously. I can actually zoom a little bit here. And to change the font, you can click on this cogwheel, text size, medium, or even large in our case for the demo purposes. So let's go down. Again, az group list o table. Perfect. And you don't have to install anything to use Cloud Shell. You have it out of the box in Azure. You don't pay anything for it. You just pay for storage account, but this is literally under €1 a month just to use Cloud Shell. So it's pretty much free. And you can do anything here that you can do on your local drive. Almost anything, of course. And this is Bash, so it's Linux. It's tiny bit different than on Windows in Batch, but it's still better because Bash is more powerful than Batch. If you're using Windows, I recommend using PowerShell with CLI to get those more advanced scenarios going on, like looping, etc. But for now, this is enough. And as I said, you can do everything here. Even interactive mode works here. As you see, it's searching, it's downloading. This is the first time setup process that I was talking about. And since it's downloading stuff, for the first time when it's downloading stuff, it had to put it somewhere, and that was the storage account for, right? And we're gonna press enter like twice, 3 times. It's still loading on the bottom. It's still loading. But you get the drill. With Cloud Shell, you can run the same commands on your PC or in the cloud in just your browser. See? Same stuff. So let's actually clean after ourselves right now. We're gonna use again CLI for that. Let's type az group and delete. So we want to delete. What are the required parameters? First of all, the name of the group is required. So dash name in this case. What are the options? And of course I want to delete my group. And here, of course, it will delete the group. It will ask me for it. But of course, there are some cool options like dash no wait. So the command will actually run and the deletion will happen in the background. Are you sure you want to delete my group? Yes, I do. And it's deleting. If you would type group list right now, -o table, you would see that one of the groups is currently status deleting. This no wait is pretty cool if you want to delete a lot of groups at the same time and you don't want to wait for them to complete before running the next part of the script. As you see, with CLI, automation is very easy and it saves a lot of time. So whenever you're a beginner or a pro, that's the right path for you. Start using it today and take full advantage of it. That's it for today. If you liked the video, hit thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and see you next time.